Hey my friend, day 2 of our 7 days Swift challenge. I know I'm so stoked, I'm so energized that knowing that you are here, you are in this challenge with me. So I hope that you will get tons and tons of trainings and tons of values from this challenge, or at least you get my energy, because this can be fun, learning can be fun, and learning can be energizing. So I hope that you enjoy this series with me, this challenge with me. Today we are going to learn about a new concept, two new concepts. Number one is array in Swift, meaning that okay, I will leave that in our demo. Number two, we will talk about if-else statement or control flow. So that is what we'll talk about in this video. Again, I want to just remind you that you don't need any prior programming experience in order to do this. All you need is start, and we are right now building your experience. You don't need anyone's approval, you don't need anyone's certification or degrees or permission to do this. All you need is your will, your grit, and your commitment to sit down with me every single day for 30 minutes for 7 days, and you will know how to code. You will join movements of millions of people who code, who become a developer. And again, I just hope that you complete this, because so many people give up right in the first day. But you are here, you show up here again. That proves to me that you are here for a reason, that you are still in this, that you're hard in this. Maybe you want to become a developer, you want extra, maybe you want a different career, maybe you want extra amount of income. And I know that you can do this. You can do this. You really can do this. Because if a kid from Vietnam didn't even speak English, didn't even know how to read English, and his family, my family, was struggling so bad financially, we never had any savings, and I can do this. Learning how to code gives me so much opportunities to become the man who I am here today, having the chance to share what I learned with you, having the chance to serve millions of developers. Last year alone, it's been a journey, and I hope that you will join the journey with me, and you can really do this. So let's get ahead, open up your computer, let's go into our demo. We talk about array and if-else statement. Again, we have 2 code challenges today for you, because we have 2 topics we'll talk about today. So let's get ahead. Please remember that you have to do the code challenge too. Do the code challenge, it will help you a lot. So let's head into the demo. Alright my friend, bust out your Xcode and let's get started. What's an array? An array is something, it's a variable. And still remember variable in the last session? A variable is something you store some value there and you can change its value. Remember that we have the variable typed. What is it typed? We have a string, right? We have an int, we have a double, and we have something we call a Boolean value, meaning that it's true or false. So let's say I have something called var, programming is fun, and I said it is true. Right, and then after a while you learn it, you find that it is confusing, you change it into false, right? So that is Boolean values, and the true or false here is the keyword, the syntax, the vocabulary. So now after a while you learn it, you find you are competent at that, and you feel confident about programming. Like after this course, then you change it into true. So that is a variable. An array is also a variable. But it is a special kind of variable that you can store not only one single value of a type, but a sequence or an array of values, and that's why we call it an array. So let's say I want to create something that can store a bunch of numbers, right? Then I would type that it is an array of integer, and here's the syntax. The type is an array of integer with the square bracket. And then to initialize it, to give it an initial value, I'm going to give it this bracket. And inside here, we are going to have different elements of the array. So here, let's say we have 12, 13, 14, 15, like that. And each element will be separated by the comma. So there are a few terms here that I want you to remember and get used to. Number one, the type of the array. The type of this array is an array of integer. It is not integer, right? Integer is the type of the element of the array. Okay, and also an element of the array is like one single value inside the array. So we have three things here I want you to definitely make clear for you. Number one is the type of the array. What is the type of this array? It is an array of integer. Number two, what is the element of the array? An element of an array is each single value inside the array, like this. Now, if you read different blog posts or different textbooks, you will find that like there are more concrete definition of those things, right? But if there's something I'm known for is that I just make things so simple and so clear in not like rocket science terms. So bear with me here, right? I hope it just makes sense for you. And then we have the type of the element of the array. Here we have the type of the element is an integer. Alright, so now the next thing I want you to know about an array is the index of array. Because if we store things in an array, then there must be a way for us to retrieve or to get the values of each single element inside the array. There comes index of an array. And now the index of an array is the order or the kind of like the address of each element inside the array. And it's always from 0 and then 1 and then 2, right? And then 3. So it's the index of the array is always starting from 0 to 1 to 3 to 2 to 3 up until the last element. Now, why, you may ask, why don't we just start from 1? Because I still remember the first time I know about an array, it's kind of like buggy because why do we have to start from 0? Why don't we just use it from 1? So that we are familiar with that. If we have a list of things, then we have the first element is 1, 2, 3, 4. We have a shopping cart. The first element is always 1, 2, 3, 4. Why do we use from 0? Well, as it turns out that computer scientists, they are kind of like lazy because inside the memory, the things that the things that your program is stored when it is running, right? It is work this way. So it's the same for an array. That's why like when they translate from the array like this, there's a lot of things involved and they just get used to that. So just know that this is something that they get used to. It is a convention that we start the array from 0. That's all. Now, if in some cases you can start from 1, but then you have to minus 1 every single time, and that is index of the array. Just know that it starts from 0 to 1 to 2 to 3. So let's have some examples for an array, and then I will show you some other operations about some other things in an array. Okay? So let's say I have an array of books, and this time the type of the array is an array of string. And then let's say here we have some books like pig, we have great, we have abundance, right? And then let's say we have the motivation manifesto, like that, right? Those are the 4 books. And now we know the index of each element inside the array. How can we access those values? How can we access, let's say I want to access the pig, right? The value of the first element inside the array. Well, we use these index. So here, let's repeat here. What is the index here? We have 0, right? The great is 1, abundance is 2, motivation manifesto is 3, right? That is the index of the array. Make sense? Okay, I should here. So now let's access the first element. So let's say we have a var called first book, and that we use the array's name, the name of the array. Again, it is still a variable. It's just a variable, and we have books subscript. We call that subscript. We use the same square brackets here, syntax, and inside that is the index. Inside this can be any variable,
but it has to be an integer. Okay, here we put it 0. So we said, hey, I want to know the value of the first element, because this is index 0, pick. So it gets the first element inside the array. It assigns the value into this, the first book, right? Then we have pick over here. Makes sense, right? Now you may ask, why don't you have the type of the variable here? Again, because we talk about Swift. Swift can infer the value. Swift can infer the type of the variable. Here, the book subscript 0, it is going to be a string. So it knows that this first book is a string. Or you can just do a string like this. Alright, next, let's have the second book. So var second book. What is that? It is books subscript 1. Let's have the third book over here, which is books subscript 2. Right? The third book is abundance and the index is 2. Always know that, like, the third book will be 3 minus 1. Now, what is the last book? So we have var, the last book is going to be books. It has 4 elements, so it has the last book is indexed as 3. Now you may ask, what if I add another book into the library, right? Let's say I want to add another book, let's say Blue Ocean Strategy, right? I add another book, then this thing, it is at index 3, it will not be the last book anymore. It will not be the last book anymore. So it shouldn't be like this. There must be another way for us. There must be another way for us to know what is the last index of the array, because that is very important. As we move on into just a few sessions, you know, we use something we call a for loop, and that allows us to just run automatically through the array. And I'm so excited to share that with you. But just know that we must know the index of the last element of the array. No matter if you add another element or you delete another element from the array. How can we do that? Well, it comes from an insight. It comes from an insight that we know that the first element of the array is always 0. The last element of the array will have the index of the number of elements inside the array minus 1. Now in here we have 5 elements, right? The first element is indexed as 0, not 1, but 0. So the last element here will be index 5 minus 1 is 4. So here, now another question is, how can we know the number of elements inside the array? Well, there's a way for that. I will create var number of books, which is the number of elements inside this books array. I will use equals to books, the name of the array, and then we use a syntax called dot notation. Dot notation. What it is we use the dot here, and then we have count, like that. Okay, so we have books.count, and you see it returns 5. And if I delete this Blue Ocean Strategy right here, and it runs again, it will be 4, right? If I add the Blue Ocean Strategy, it will be 5, right? If I even delete up until here, just one pick, then we got an error. Now, why is this error? Okay, why is this error? It says execution was interrupted. The reason is some weird thing like that. You have this a lot, and I would say that 6 or 7 out of 10 questions that I get all over the internet is from this error, right? Because array is used in every single app that you are using. So that's why it is so popular. And this error, pay attention that every time you have this kind of error, you should look below this thing. Okay, there's below here, or you can drag it up like this. This thing is something we call the console. And if I will zoom in like this, it says fatal error, index out of range. What is that? Well, as it turns out that an array has a range of index. So an array has a range of index. It means that the first element is always at 0, right? Up until the last index is the number of elements minus 1. So if any array, any index that goes out of this range will crash your app, because let's say this array right now it just has only one element, and you was telling it that, hey, I want to access the index at the index 1, meaning that the second element, and it goes into this books array. It looks into these values and it goes, okay, the first element is here, the second element, there's no second element, so I don't know how to handle this thing. Let's crash the app and report the error. And here it goes. The error is factor error, index out of range. So only means that there's no single element at this index, and so it crashed the app. And now if I put back the value here, it will be okay again. Now that thing happens a lot, so pay attention, and as we move on, I will show you some of the most popular crashes and bugs and errors, and a lot of time that will be just like intentional. A lot of time it will be just, I didn't know about that, it will just crash the app and we will debug together, because debugging is another very critical element and skill, I would say, of a developer. And a lot of people say that like 30 or 50% of the time that as a developer you use to debug your program. So you use 30 to 50% of your time to write the app, and then half of the time or third of the time used to debug the program. And that's actually true. So now let's go back into our conversation about finding the last element of the array. Now we know the number of books, the number of elements. Let's just have var, the last index will be the number of books minus 1. Right? And so let's just have last book here. We change the value into books subscript last index, because remember that I tell you the index inside this thing, it can be anything. It can be any variable that has the value of an integer. So that is the last book. And rest assured that if I delete this thing, if I delete the Blue Ocean strategy, it will change automatically into the motivation manifesto. That's the magic of using the last index. Okay, so let's talk about another thing, the last thing, and then I will let you go and do your code challenge. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk to you about is how we can append, or how we can insert another element inside the array. So now here we have the books here, and in order to like add another element, we have to typing in something here. That is not usually the way that we can do it, because in program it has to very dynamic. If you have a to-do list and the user enters some text, some to-do, then you have to insert that to-do into the list of to-dos. So how can we do that? Well, we use something we call an append method. Okay, a method is like a function, or is like a functionality of an object that you can do some things with it. So imagine that this array is an object and you can do some operation on that object, and it's the same for here. So I will do books dot append. Again, we use the dot notation, and I press enter, and then here let's say I want to append the mindset book. Another great book, I really love that. So we have books.append mindset, and now if I have books here, press enter, then you see over here, let's go here, it has 0 is pick, 1 is grit, and the last one is mindset. Okay, all right, so now let's have another very simple example, and then we'll go into the code challenge. Number 1, I'm going to have an array of authors to be something like this. Anders Ericsson, okay, like this. Angela, I will just have the first name, let's say Peter Diamandis, and we'll have Brandon Bouchard. Oops, like that, right? And then let's have the first book. How about the first author? var the first author to be authors what subscript 0. That's the index. Then let's have the last author. What is the last author? We have to know the authors subscript. Here I will use immediately, pay attention. Authors.count minus 1. Because authors, no, right, the name of the array dot count is the number of elements inside the array. And if we minus 1, then we got the last index. It's the same here. I just do it on one line like that. Sounds good? Alright, so that is that. How you use an array, how to create an array, the element inside the array, the types of the array, the types of the element inside the array, how you can use the dot notation to know the number of elements inside the array, to find the last index of the array, to find the last element inside the array, and how to append, how to insert new element inside the array. I hope that you enjoyed this session, and as always, right below this video, find the code challenge that I write out for you. Do the code challenge, come back with me in just a few minutes. I would say give it, let's say 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Do the code challenge, come back with me, and we'll do it together. Let's see ya. Alright, did you do the code challenge? Here we go. Here is an array of to-dos that I create, because I just have some to-dos here, some very weird to-dos, and we have this thing. And now let's access the first element. We have to-do subscript 0, and notice that I don't assign a value into, I don't assign this value into a variable. So we just have leave it here because it is a playground. We can just play around with these values. Now let's append another to-do inside this. How about we have find an iOS dev course, right? So here, if we have to-dos again, then it's going to be a bunch of things, and the last one could be find an iOS dev course, right? Now let's find the last element of the to-dos. To-dos.count is the last element, right? And so if I do, let's say var last to-do, it's going to be the to-dos subscript to-dos.count minus 1.